Hello, explorers. Welcome back to Reach the World's Explorer program. As you know, for over 20 years, Reach the World has inspired youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens through the use of virtual exchange. My name is Tim, and I am so glad you're joining us for today's live stream Explorer program event. Today, we are rejoining field researcher and explorer Jane in Mexico as we learn more about the work that she's doing around manta rays in Mexico, both mostly on the Caribbean side, but we know from our last call that she's also spent some time on the Baja, or the Pacific Ocean side of Mexico. And I am personally very, very excited to check in with her again and see what she's been up to and see what's new and ask any questions that you have for her. She has recently published several new articles that are full of exciting stories from her time in the water and some of the things that she's seen and how she's spending her time. So make sure, if you haven't checked in with Jane's Virtual Exchange homepage recently, to log on and click an article and read through it and think of some questions that we can pass along to her. Before we bring Jane in, I just want to make a specific welcome for any teachers and students who are joining us live today. Welcome. Please feel free to use the YouTube chat bar to let us know you're here, where you're joining from, of course, always of interest. And of course, share any questions you have for Jane as we go. We'll get to as many questions as we can in the next 30, 40 minutes. And with all of that, without further ado, I'm going to welcome Jane back to Reach the World. Hey, Jane.
Hey, Tim. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you? It's so nice to see you again.
It's so nice to see you again. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited to be here today.
You're welcome. Yes, the last time we talked to you, had just gotten back from a short trip to the Baja side
Mhm.
of Mexico. And can you just
Yes.
sort of recap for us what you were doing on that side? Because we know that most of your research is focused on the Caribbean side of Mexico.
Mhm.
What were you doing on the other side of Mexico?
Sure. So we actually have a few different projects that study mantas both in the Caribbean part of Mexico and the Gulf of California, also called the Sea of Cortez, and then in the Mexican Pacific Ocean. But here in Baja, there was a very iconic population of mantas. It was very prevalent. It was a big population. And then due to fishing pressures, that population of mantas collapsed in the 1990s, I believe. And now we're starting to get those mantas back, which is really exciting because mantas are such an iconic species for Mexico. It's part of the Mexican national heritage. And so to have these mantas back is so cool and so amazing. We're so excited about where they're going, what they're doing. So we were able to place some tags a few weeks ago here in the Gulf of California. And hopefully, like when that data comes back in the next couple months, it could take months, a year, usually not that long, but it takes a bit of time to get that data back. But then that will give us some clues as to where these mantas are going. And hopefully, we're going to be seeing more signs of a healthy population building again in the Sea of Cortez, Gulf of California, now that we have established strong protections for those mantas here. So that's really exciting work that we are also into here.
Yeah, that is wonderful. From just an
Yeah,
experience standpoint, I know we saw from your articles you like to get in the water, you like to be in and
always.
amongst these amazing animals.
Yes.
Are you in the water when you tag a manta?
Yes. So you have to be in the water when you tag a manta. If you've seen videos of tagging whales, it's pretty different because whales are very difficult to get in the water with. They're very shy with people. A lot of megafauna are. Megafauna is a word that we use to describe very large sea creatures. But so a lot of marine mammal scientists will work from boats. But with the mantas, they can be very fast. And so we definitely have to get in the water to get them. And sometimes it's a lot of chasing. So imagine chasing something, but in full scuba gear with tanks and weights and all of that. So it can be very difficult. But yeah, we basically have to leave a few meters distance between our feet, I guess, between us and the manta. And basically, what we are looking for to place that tag is the area in the top right of the body, near to the tail, because they have a hard not cartilaginous, calcified, I guess you could call it, more like a mass in that area, and it's away from their internal organs. So we want to place that tag far from anything dangerous, in an area that doesn't hurt the manta. So we definitely have to be in the water.
I mean, I would think that that would be one of really the high points of doing field research. For anyone who, works at a job or they're sitting at a desk in an office, what you're talking about
Yeah.
as a part of your regular work sounds incredibly thrilling.
It is. It really is the best. And when we take the photo ID, which I talked about in one of my articles, it's a way that we keep track of the populations of the mantas, the individuals, who's coming, who's going. When we take the photo ID, we have to swim underneath the manta. And that's my favorite part, actually, because then they're kind of like, what are you doing down there? Like, they get kind of slow sometimes, and then they'll like look at you when you come up, and they'll turn around you sometimes, and it's really nice. I love any excuse to get close to mantas, to be honest, but that's my favorite part.
All right. So we also have learned from your articles that those moments of high excitement where you're swimming underneath mantas is not really how you spend most of your time as a
Yes.
scientist. Can you
Yeah.
just sort of tell us, when you're not in the water, placing tagging devices, or making those observations, how are you
Mhm.
spending the rest of your time?
Well, I'm still a student. I'm a graduate student, so I spend a lot of time in class. So on any given day, I have to go to campus. And then because we do have so many responsibilities as scientists, it's not just like doing your research, it's doing your research, but also getting your research funded and speaking with other scientists and doing, it's called a literature review. It's basically a fancy term for when you're just looking for information. So I spend a lot of time just doing background research to supplement my project, connecting with other researchers that might want to collaborate on the project that have more knowledge of these species or these methods. Because since I'm a relatively newer scientist, I still rely a lot on mentorship and learning, as we all should, but especially in the beginning. So I spend a lot of time at my desk right here where you see me now at the computer. But it's really those really special moments in the field that are so like high energy and so exciting that really it keeps you going through everything else. And like I said in one of my articles, I love the computer work too, because when all my data comes together and all the work comes together, it's kind of like taking, like, you are just getting the most exciting discovery at the end. So every step is exciting in its own way, but the field is definitely special.
Yeah, you can't really do one without the other, really. You got to
No.
do the work to set up the actual in the water stuff, and the in the water
Yeah.
stuff helps what you're doing when you're on dry land, it seems.
Yep. All of it together.
Cool. We keep referencing your great articles, and I am going to put up a link on the screen for anyone who has not had a chance to read your articles, because I agree that they are fantastic and they are really illustrating so much of what you're doing in Mexico as part of this research project. We
Yes.
spoke last time about what your ultimate goal of accomplishing in Mexico was, and it sounds
Mhm.
like there have been some sort of weather issues and things. Like what's happening
Yeah.
with your active project right now? What's going on?
Yes. So right now there was a hurricane a few weeks ago when we were scheduled to go into the field. And now what basically like the site that the mantas are at, Manta Valley, the currents have to be in a very flowing in a very specific direction at a very specific strength for the mantas to arrive. And not only does that have to happen, but it has to be the correct time of the year. There needs to be a certain amount of plankton. The water needs to be a certain temperature. The bigger currents that are prevalent in that area, the Cabo Cotoche, it's an upwelling, which is an oceanographic feature of cold water coming up from the bottom, to kind of bring more nutrients to the surface. Things like that. It's difficult in field work because so many things have to kind of align for us to be able to place the tag successfully and do the work. It's not only the weather conditions, it's, are the weather conditions right? Are the mantas there? Do we have the right gear at the right time? Are the mantas swimming fast? Are the mantas swimming slow? Can we catch them? It's so many things that have to line up for you to pull off like a successful fieldwork mission. So because of some weather issues this year, we are a bit behind in our ultimate goal, which was to place 12 more tags on the mantas in the Mexican Caribbean. So right now, what we are really excited about is that we think we have some evidence for something called residency, which Tim and I were talking about a little bit today.
All right, great. I want to go into residency and why that's so exciting. But first, you referenced you have a lot of things have to be ready to go at a certain
Yes,
point. Things that are within your control and things that are also just totally not within your control.
totally
For
out of your
example,
control.
as much as you'd like to, I'm sure you would wish to stop hurricanes and move them out of the Caribbean, but totally
Would be,
beyond your
yeah.
control. Um, if say everything that was out of your control was perfectly aligned and
Mhm.
going great, what would it look like for you from where you are? What would you have to assemble? What would you have to do to get to Manta Valley? Am I saying that right? Is it called Manta Valley? Where you wanted to do the tagging?
Yeah,
What kind of gear would you have to assemble? What would the journey look like? Like, how would you get from where you are to Manta Valley?
sure. So if all the conditions are correct and we can go, we get a call from our field, our collaborator in the field, Rodrigo, and he would call us and tell us like, hey, the mantas are here, you can come. So we basically would get on a flight the next day with all of our gear packed. And so that's like your scuba gear. There's different things that you need too. Like, so I don't have my laser frame. I attached a picture of the laser frame in my article. But so we would take gear to measure the mantas, which is the laser frame that's like about this big with the two lasers on it. We take our laser frame, we take our Hawaiianas, which is the modified Hawaiian sling. And it's basically like a pole spear that we use to place the tags. So we have to take that. We have to take that to take tissue samples. We take the tags. We take our scuba gear. We have to take gas and food and water. So it's a huge undertaking to go to the field, even for a more simple thing, which kind of goes back to like the time in the field is amazing, but there's so much planning that goes into every single field trip just to make the smallest things happen, you know? So we just have to coordinate how we get. Right now, I'm in La Paz, which is where my university is, and that's on the west coast of Mexico and the Gulf of California. So then we plan how do we get from the Gulf of California as quickly as possible over to Cancun. Then we leave from Cancun out in the boat to Manta Valley. Like hopefully we jump in, we find the mantas, and then at that point we work as a team. One person would swim under the manta and point the lasers on the manta's belly to get that ID photograph so that we can tell which individual manta is which, and we use that for our population dynamic study, which is basically just a way of saying like how many mantas are living here. Are they males? Are they females? Are they older? Are they younger? Do they have injuries? Like how are they? Like everything about them. And so as a team, we collect that data basically as fast as possible just to eliminate it's not that it stresses the manta out. Every manta is different, honestly, and some would be stressed and some wouldn't, but just to minimize the time that we're spending in close proximity to wildlife, which is a good practice for any scientific study or any time you spend around wildlife. We work as quickly as possible as a team to place the tag, take the tissue sample, take the picture, shine the lasers, and that's kind of it all works very fast, you know, like we're out on the boat and once we approach the site, everyone just starts getting dressed, you put your tanks on, everything's on, and you see the mantas and then you have to just jump and go for it.
Sounds
No
like
hesitation.
yeah, like if you have the window, it's kind of a mad rush to get there
Yes,
and get them before they're
yes.
gone.
That's why planning is so important
Yeah.
for our field, so important.
And you were saying before that there's sort of a limited window for
Mhm.
when this sort of work can happen. What is that
Yes,
window?
May through September.
Okay.
And that's because there's a certain current in the Caribbean that we get. I was talking about those upwellings. That's when like we get the influx of kind of cold water into that warm Caribbean water, and it brings a ton of plankton, and the mantas love the plankton. So that's when the mantas come to eat, and that's when we come to see the mantas.
Okay, and that's why now that we're in November, the window has closed, and it's
The
probably
window
going to
is
be
closed.
next spring before you have a chance to do that again.
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh,
But
bummer.
that's kind of just how it goes. Like even when we can plan all day, every day, and sometimes it just still doesn't work out how we want it to. So working in field science, you have to just kind of get used to letting things go how you
Yeah,
thought it was going to go. It's like, okay, I really wanted this to happen like this, but it didn't. So kind of like get it back together, make your next plan, and be ready for the next chance.
yeah. Well,
Always,
that's
yeah.
something a lot of young students have a lot of familiarity with after the pandemic, being really
I
excited
bet.
about something and then it doesn't quite go the way you want it to, and having to be
Yeah.
resilient and and plan for the next one. So,
Yes.
well, let's just go back to the idea of residency. Can you tell me why
Yes.
this idea of residency with manta rays is so exciting for you?
Yes. So residency is so exciting because there's a lot of debate right now between researchers as to if mantas stay in one place, like residents, like you or me, like we have our house, we live in our house, we come here every day. My food's here, my things are here. I like to come here, obviously. And then between the debate of residency versus migratory, which is just the word for animals that travel long distances. You've probably heard of like sea turtles and whales are very migratory. And because we haven't been studying mantas for that long, we don't know are mantas resident or are mantas migratory. Some populations, which is just different groups in different parts of the world, have confirmed to have been resident. So we think that our mantas in the Caribbean might be resident, which is really exciting because it means that when we go to create management guidelines or protective measures for those mantas, we work exclusively with the Mexican government, kind of in those communities, because those are the only like governing bodies. So it's a lot more straightforward when you're only working with one institution. But basically, it's so much easier for us if the mantas are just staying there, for us to protect the mantas if they're staying there. But it's cool and it's new information about the species, which is also really exciting. I mean, we get to study the same animals year after year, so we can learn so much about them just by having them returning.
And is that the case that they then stay within like a really large area or a really small area, or that they leave the area but always come back to the same place?
That's what we're trying to figure out right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but residency can be different. But in general, residency means that they stay within a certain range
Okay.
consistently.
Right.
Yeah. So as for our Caribbean mantas, we don't know yet what's going on. You'll be the first to know
All right.
as soon as I know.
No, it's exciting to know that right now, using the techniques you just described,
Mhm.
that the data you get back from some of those trackers, especially when more and more are placed on the species that you're studying, that maybe the
Yes,
full extent of that range will be discovered. And that's
it
a new
is.
new knowledge for all of us, and will help you
Yes.
and others really understand the way these animals work and live,
Yeah.
and how best to protect them.
Yeah, and that's so important because oceanic mantas were the first manta or the first ray to be named like endangered, to be classified as endangered. So it's kind of very urgent that we figure out as much as we can about mantas just so we can protect them as best as possible.
All right. You mentioned that you work with some partners in the Cancun area who kind of help you
Yes.
identify when the mantas are there, when they've arrived,
Yes.
or when they've been spotted. Can you talk
Yes.
a little bit about the partners that you work with?
Yeah, so we are partnered right now with a conservationist and photographer named Rodrigo Friscone, and he's been diving in that area for I think like 20 years. It's a family business, a family dive shop. And so Rodrigo discovered our site about 10 years ago, I think maybe a little more, 10 or 11 years ago, and has been documenting the data for the mantas at the site for 10 years, which is a lot of time. Like he's poured so much time and effort into putting together a more complete data set so that we can all collaborate and work on that now. So without him, we wouldn't have a project. And that's so important in science and anything you do in life. You always want to acknowledge anyone that's helped you along the way, but he's been integral to this project. So we would be lost without his work and his help in the site. And even now, he monitors the site. He lets us know when it's good to come, when we can come place the tags, when the mantas are there. And especially us working all the way from the other side of Mexico, it's so important to have a local collaborator there that knows the community and knows the area, and knows the site. So he's been incredible as far as the project goes.
All right. Wonderful. Well, I'm sorry that your window for collecting more research didn't work out this year.
It's
I know that
okay.
your project has several more seasons to go, correct?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So it's not the end, just the beginning
Yeah.
too.
All right. So you're going to be over the course of this winter, you're going to be working on coursework,
Data
um,
analysis.
data analysis, getting
Mhm.
prepared for the next chance to go out and do more tagging.
Yes, it's always planning. We're always getting ready for the next chance. So,
Great.
yeah. Yeah.
On sort of like a different note, we recently celebrated Halloween here in the United States, and I
Hmm.
wondered if you got a chance to participate in any Dia de los Muertos festivities in La Paz.
Yes, I did. So I've read about Dia de Muertos for a long time. I've always been curious about Dia de Muertos. And I finally got to be here in Mexico for Dia de Muertos. And a big part of Dia de Muertos is you paint your face like a skeleton. And it's kind of a way that in the spirit of the holiday and remembering loved ones. And it's almost like it's hard to describe, but like mocking death when you paint your face like the skeleton, because it's like we're all here, we're all alive, we're all celebrating together and remembering. So one of my very close friends painted my face like the skeleton, and we went out. We saw the parade of the Catrinas. If you've seen Coco, when Miguel originally falls into the grave, and the woman that discovers him with the big hat and the flowers and the big dress, that's a Catrina, which is an iconic part of the Dia de Muertos culture in Mexico, just like a very famous art figure, and it's culturally important. And so I did get to go out with my friends and kind of see the parade of the Katrinas and learn more about the customs and the traditions. I think I included a picture of the flowers, the marigolds. Those are spiritually important here for Day of the Dead, but everywhere in Mexico you go at this time of the year, you're going to find the marigolds. So I got to go and see all of that. It was really special.
Fantastic. And I know I just have to ask this on behalf of U.S. school children who have never been to Mexico. Do you get candy still? Is there still candy involved somewhere, somehow?
um, there's sweet things involved, but it's called pan de muerto. It's a bread. It's like about this big, and it's sugary, and it has a design of bones on top. So you get pan de muerto, but a lot of people do celebrate Halloween here. Halloween is different from Dia de Muertos. It's a
Mhm.
completely different holiday, but people do celebrate it. So I got candy.
All right. Good. Good. Good.
Yes.
That's very, very important.
Yes, I passed it out actually because I dressed up as a piñata for a Halloween party at school. I should have worn the piñata costume to the live stream. But I had candy because I was the piñata.
All right. Good. Well, I hope
Yeah,
nobody like chased you with a stick and taking.
someone did, but
Yeah.
yeah, but it's okay.
Well, Jane, thank you so much. It's been really nice to get an update on what you've been up to. I'm so excited. I'm going to be waiting like with bated breath for you. And next season, I hope all the weather stuff combines and
Yes.
you get to go out in the field. It's been really good, I think, to remember that even the best laid plans, go
Yeah.
awry, that it doesn't always
Yeah.
work out. But I can tell you've already built into your plan, though, the opportunity for multiple chances at this. You weren't putting
Yes.
all your eggs in the one basket of this one season because you
Yes.
knew that animals are unpredictable, weather is
Yes.
unpredictable, um,
Yes.
lots of different factors.
Yes. We plan for more plans, and that's science in a nutshell.
Well, you have got so many great articles on your virtual exchange homepage. They're phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
absolutely a place where kids and teachers can go to learn more about what you're doing and see pictures of
Hmm.
your underwater work.
The
And
mantas, the sea
yeah,
lions. Yeah.
absolutely. There's so much to see and learn about.
Hmm.
And we're going to connect with you again in a little bit and check in with you and see how
Yeah.
things are going. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you again so much for taking this time out of your day to check in with us and say hello.
Thank you. I love doing this. It's so nice to connect and catch up, and I love meeting everyone and talking about mantas. I could do it all day long.
Fantastic.
So
Well,
thank you. Yes.
always very nice to see you. That is all the time we have for today. Thank
Hmm.
you so much for teachers and students who are joining us.
Hmm.
Hello, and thanks for joining us to all of you who are watching this recording after the fact. Make sure once again that you get over to Jane's homepage on the Reach the World website and check out her articles. And we'll reconvene again in a couple weeks so that you can ask her some more of your questions. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Jane. Have a good
Thank
week.
you. Bye.